to America's Mayor Live. And tonight, let's begin with the coronation that's coming up. I just want to note about it that it is being featured in the newspapers as great diversity. This is the coronation with the most diversity. And here are the here are the people they list to show that this coronation is going to reach the people. You, the ordinary people, me, the ordinary people. He's a pop star Lionel Richie. Not exactly, the guy who's like in the middle of the pack, right? He's kind of at the top, right? The First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden. This is like an all-inclusive list. How about the King of Tonga? That would be the most important person in Tonga, not just like somebody from Tonga. And then the magician Dynamo, that I don't know how to react to, except that King Charles, has always been a kind of a bit of a silly lefty. And President Emmanuel Macron, there's another just ordinary Frenchman. We'll just invite him. And finally, there is a guy named Max Woozy, who was a teenage boy who camped in his garden for 3 years to raise money for charity. So we do have one of those. But I mean, look, obviously you can't invite everyone. And the people that invited, most of them are going to be really important people. Now, Charles had to reduce it to 2,300 people. His mother's coronation way back in 1953 had 8,250 people because they were able to build stands then. Now it would take 6 months to build those same stands, which has to indicate we're going in the wrong direction, right? There's not a lot of good news coming out of this. He's the head of state to 14 countries and is the head of a commonwealth of 56 nations. Gosh, I didn't realize that. The president of the United States has never gone to the coronation of the king or queen of England. And there are people like putting their fingers in their mouth wondering why. Because we fought a war to get rid of the king. That's why. We fought a war and lost many, many lives, and people, had to make the ultimate sacrifice to gain our freedom from the King of England and from monarchy. That's why the president of the United States doesn't go. I'm glad Biden didn't forget, but his wife is going, and I don't know that a first lady has ever gone. Almost the same thing. In their case, maybe the same thing. Who knows? Wonder who's going to take care of him while she's gone, if she does take care of him. Maybe she could have stayed at home and told him this is not exactly the best recruiting poster for the United States Navy. What do you think? Can we see this one? Can you see the recruiting poster here? That's the transgender person who's part of an ad. I think it is called. I'm not sure if this is transgender. Well, I'm just not sure. Obviously, the person presents themselves as a female, correct? That's a female, is it not?
That's right.
I know you're not supposed to know what a woman is. That's what the justice on the Supreme Court said. But I think that looks like a woman, right?
That's right.
Okay. So this is probably a male biologically and a female in their mind. Awesome. Her name is his name is Yeoman Second Class Joshua Kelly. Okay. But Kelly is also a performer, as these people who feature themselves all are. They're all performers, in it for the money, exploiting us, exploiting our children, exploiting the Navy. Her nickname, or her stage name, is Harpy Daniels. This is really quite a thing. This is going to draw lots of people to the Navy, all the kinds of people you want who would like to be friends with Harpy Daniels. This is what you voted for when you voted for Biden. You going to do it again? when you vote for Democrats. This is what you vote for. You vote for Harpy Daniels as a representative of your Navy, just at a time in which, what are the Chinese concentrating on? I don't see any Chinese transvestites advertising for the Chinese Navy, which has just passed us as the largest Navy in the world. Maybe we should get serious and grow up and realize that they have a stronger Navy than we have, a bigger Navy at least. Instead, we're playing games with Harpy Daniels. There's a very controversial case in New York, where I am right now, in which a Marine on the subway interfered with a man who had gone crazy. I don't know how to describe it best, but here are the description before they tried to before this effort to frame this man started. This was the police description, and the New York Post quite correctly says previously. Now, I hope the police don't change their mind, but this is all now in the hands of the maniacal DA, Bragg, the same one who was prosecuting the former president of the United States for a crime that doesn't exist, and not even alleging what that crime is. He's going to keep it a secret until we actually go to trial. So this could get very dangerous, because this wouldn't be the first time that he's attempted to put people in jail for self-defense, particularly if they were white or Hispanic. In this particular case, the Marine intervened because this man was yelling, screaming, threatening people, pointing at them. Then he took his jacket off and was making a fist, and the Marine says it looked like he was going to clobber somebody, and he jumped to the rescue, which is what we say doesn't happen often enough, right? People are getting beaten and everybody watches, and most people seem to be content to take pictures of it, which I find disgusting, instead of helping the person that's being beaten mercilessly. Well, it looked like that was about to happen. This Marine, rather than watching it, obviously having confidence in his own ability and overcoming the risk of possibly the man also having a knife or a gun, got behind the man, grabbed him by the back of the throat, and took him down right away. And he applied a chokehold, and the man appeared to be unconscious. The witnesses around, including this man, Mr. Alberto Vasquez, who seems to be the chief witness, none of us who were there thought he was in danger of dying. We thought he just passed out or ran out of air. Well, that would really show that this is not a situation where the Marine thought he was applying, the kind of force that would kill him, or intended to. He intended to disable him and to stop him from traumatizing, frightening, and possibly moving to the next step. I mean, once he moves to the next step, the damage is done. Maybe he could hit someone and knock him on the ground and kill them. Then you stop him. I mean, when you see a clear and present danger that this man is going to hurt people, harm people, then you got to act before it happens, not after. Also, he has a record that they haven't put out the whole record, except I've heard anything from 20 to 50 arrests, including of crimes of violence. They try to keep those quiet. In the article, what do they say originally? That he's mentally ill, which of course wouldn't count for very much if he killed you, right? I mean, you're still dead. If the guy who beats the living daylights out of you is just a hardened criminal who likes to do that, or is mentally ill, I don't know. Let's say it was your child got beaten to death by a mentally ill person, or someone who wasn't. It's not going to make much difference to you whether the person was mentally ill or not. And your safety is not really taken care of if the mentally ill are allowed to do anything they want. Maybe they should be incarcerated, whether they're mentally ill or not. Isn't it the danger to society and to innocent people that should be put first? Not New York. Neely has numerous arrests on his record, including for drugs, disorderly conduct, and fair beating. And he has a history of mental illness. He also has on his record beating an old woman to a pulp, and several other very, very vicious and assaults. He's accused of assaulting a 67-year-old woman in the East Village just recently. And of course, he's a product of the Bragg release the criminal to the street so they can terrorize you program. Obviously, with a desire to drive people out of New York, which has been Bragg's only success. He loses more cases than any DA in America, which makes him an extremely incompetent DA. He drops felony charges to misdemeanors about half the time, which means he's a very pro-criminal DA. We're looking for crime is up 27% since he became DA. But the only thing he's really done is contribute his fair share to the record number of people who have fled New York. If you say Bragg, people leave New York. The criminals come to New York because they know this is a nice place for them, and they will be treated very, very well. And the next guy who's on the subway and sees someone acting out who they have a suspicion is about to beat a woman or beat a child or may think twice before acting. So who's winning this battle? The criminals in New York, for sure. And probably in your own city. Here's a way to find out. Do you have a progressive Democratic mayor and or a Soros selected, paid for, and processed DA who is really a fraud because he's really a person who's put there to put criminals out on the street? If you have either or both of those things, I guarantee you have a city that's dangerous. I don't even have to look. So maybe you should call me if you're from one of those cities and you have an exception. You've got one where the progressive DA is really reducing crime and the Soros DA is actually putting all sorts of people, all the worst criminals in jail like I did. I'll tell you who's making a big, big splash. Vivek Ramaswamy, isn't he? Now, I did a podcast with him about 3 weeks back. I commend it to you. If you didn't see it then, or you did, I'd suggest reviewing it and going over it. It's about a 30-minute one, not very long, maybe 40, I don't remember. And it gives you a very, very good sense of why he is where he is. He's a very serious, very intelligent, and very nice man. And he has very sophisticated views on the economy, on the things that are wrong with America. Pretty much the same philosophy as Donald Trump. Not exactly. Possibly some different ways in which he gets to similar conclusions. Probably too young to win. Probably. I'm not going to count him out completely. That's not my job to do that, nor is it my job, to put somebody into the Republican nomination. When we get to the general election, it's going to be my job to put my body down in front of you and say, kill me before you vote for a Democrat, because otherwise I'm not going to have a country to pass on to my children and grandchildren, because Biden has already ruined it. And we're going to have to take it back, and only a Republican can do that. But Vivek is making quite an impression. And there was a column today by Miranda Devine, who is one of my 2 or 3 favorite columnists, because she's the one who had the guts to run the hard drive, about him and about what a refreshing candidate he is. Here he is right here. I came up with an idea.
Of course, our audience has known about Vivek for months now.
Well, we had him on my radio show, but I'm not sure we didn't have
almost anybody.
Did we have him on this show yet?
We haven't had him on this show yet.
Let's do that.
But we'll have him call in one of these nights.
Yeah. Now I'm going to tell you, I had an idea. I haven't told this to Ted yet. He's going to be very surprised when I said that, because while I was preparing for this show, I was listening to an interview by Robert Schmidt with Robert Kennedy Jr. and who has a very it's a fascinating philosophy that he has. And I'll go through the whole history of Robert Kennedy Jr. At some point if you want, because he doesn't know this, but I know a lot about him. And I am a big fan of his book, by the way. Promoted it heavily when they were trying to ban it. They have banned it, really. I don't know if you can get it in most bookstores, and still it's a tremendous bestseller. But in any event, he was being interviewed, and wouldn't it'd be interesting to see if a debate between Vivek and Robert F. Kennedy, sort of the two futures of either party, because it wouldn't be a bad country if that was the future of either party. Robert F. Kennedy, who I'm sure there would be divergences with on some of the environmental policies, and he has a very solid view of what's wrong with America. So there might be some disagreement on how you solve what's wrong, but I don't think that there'd be much disagreement on what is wrong, including the mass corruption in Washington, the education industrial complex, the pharmaceutical industrial complex that are running the corporate industrial complex. I don't know. He might be a little more reluctant to describe Biden as a fascist, but he sure talks about authoritarianism and censorship and loss of rights. And be interesting to hear him and Ramaswamy debate, because although I think they come to slightly different conclusions, they seem to actually be observing the world in the right way, or at least in what I think is the right way. And we'll try to get Robert Kennedy on. I tried to get him, and it didn't work. He had a trial going on when his book was very popular, and he was selling it. And he almost agreed. He was somewhat reluctant, I guess, because you get interviewed by me, and Democrats will picket your house. But he was open to having discussions and giving it a great deal of thought, and then things moved on, and he went on trial, and then we moved on to other subjects. But I would really like to interview him, and maybe not even a debate, maybe a joint interview with them, so it isn't like one of those staged, phony.
That'd be interesting.
Rather than
Mayor.
a stage, I hate those. Those things are stylized. I was involved in about 10 or 11 of those. And I didn't think people were. If you listen to one of those debates, you learned everything you needed to know. They just kept getting asked the same question over and over again. And for Republicans, every debate you're asked about abortion because they want to see if you say it differently. If you say if you said 3 months the first time and 4 months the second time, now you're lying and you changed your position. You may have just forgotten.
That's right. And Mayor, let's go ahead and play our ad. And we, of course, have a very exciting interview after we play this.
Oh, yeah. I think I have to tell you, I was listening a lot today to television. It's filled with admonitions that you better get into gold and silver. And I think this is one you better listen to, because the guy behind it probably intellectually has maybe the best understanding of it. Faith and family, freedom and finance. 4 things that we would do anything to protect. I trust the team at Kirk Elliott, PhD, Private Advisors, with providing the advice and sound strategies to take advantage of the inflationary pressures, the high interest rates, and the international challenges we face today. The Kirk Elliott team, with over 29 years of experience, shares our values and believes in people over profit. They can help you protect your finances from the big government policies that are out of our control. So what's in our control? The decision to act or not to act is within our control. I encourage you to act. Call Kirk Elliott, PhD, private advisors today. Start working with a team that will help you protect your retirement assets with gold and silver while sharing your desire to protect your faith, family, and freedom. Call them today, 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900, and tell them Rudy sent you. Or simply fill out a request for a free consultation at kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy.
And we have on the phone with us now Dr. Kirk Elliott, PhD.
Kirk, are you there?
Hey, I am. How are you doing, sir?
We're doing very, very well. We just played the ad, so people are familiar with what we're talking about and what we're suggesting for them. And I thought maybe it might bring us up to date. Before, just so happens I was watching a number of different shows, largely because I'm looking at what impact the firing of Tucker Carlson has had. I gotta tell you, the cable stations are filled with ads for gold and silver. I mean, there must be 5, 6 in that period of time that I saw. And although I'm sure there are great differences in what they can do and their expertise, the one message that comes through is a lot of people are very concerned about this. So you must be pretty busy, right?
Mayor, we are slammed.
I have to believe that. Just listening to this, I'm thinking, my goodness, right now there's nothing else on, and since we've been talking about you, last night I had a caller on who said he called your company, made an appointment with them. We've got several other calls to want to know how to get through, and we told them but I think there's a lot of confusion because there are. It's hard to know who to pick, right?
Well, there is. There's confusion because there's confusion in the country right now. You're seeing banks failing, right? We just saw First Republic go down on Sunday, and JP Morgan Chase bought them up. And then you've got Jamie Dimon, who's the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, says that he's doing God's work. And this is like, oh boy, here we go.
Oh my goodness.
Some kind of a complex. But the biggest thing I can say is there's consolidation, right? You've got big banks buying middle banks buying small banks. And so there's consolidation in the industry. You've got consolidation politically overseas with the BRICS nations, and all of these countries giving up a portion of their national sovereignty, Mayor, to be part of a larger collective, right? So they can be the world's reserve currency. Now you look at what happened with Tucker, like you opened up with, and Fox dumping him. Well, there's consolidation in messaging with mainstream media. It's like, if you don't follow the narrative, off with your head. You're out of here, right? So why all of this consolidation towards this larger global collective? Well, you've got central bank digital currency bearing down upon us. Well, you can't just go up to the mic and say, hey, we want to be the world's reserve currency. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a super strong military, a super strong economy, super strong political clout, but collectively the BRICS nations do. So then you take one more step further. You have to, in the finance world, for something to be born, something else needs to die. So the system as we know it, the banking system as we know it, is being dismantled right underneath our nose to usher in a central bank digital currency, which is all about people control and the ability to cut us off from buying or selling. So then you have to also dismantle people's confidence and faith in the banking system. Well, that's happening. So since First Republic went down, which is no small thing, Mayor. That was the 14th largest bank in America.
Right.
It was the second largest bank failure in history. And now, over the last 32 hours, we've seen PacWest Bank and 6 other banks lose upwards of 70% of their market share. And so I would venture to guess before the end of this weekend, you're going to have one more, maybe 3 more bank failures that go silver right now, sir, is the only asset in the world that's outpacing inflation. And so that's why you're seeing the huge influx of demand and why people are leaving. It's a mass exodus out of banks. It's a mass exodus out of stocks, bonds, mutual funds. With rising interest rates, real estate is collapsing. And, you know, in New York, upwards of 38% of Manhattan commercial real estate is now vacant. See, this is not.
I noticed that. I noticed that. You know, it's very and it's pretty uniform whether you're talking about the poorer areas, the middle class areas, or the upper class areas. You can see it on Madison Avenue, and you can see it, you know, in downtown.
Yeah, I mean, so all of this causes fear, right? And when people are in a fear mode, they either do nothing, which if you do nothing when the world is changing, you will sink with the ship, or it causes people to make the wrong decisions. So this is where I want to encourage everybody that's listening here to stop focusing on the storm, right? Start focusing on the solution, because that will put a smile on your face. Because when people are focusing on, oh, my stocks are collapsing, my bonds are collapsing, the world is falling apart, there's political chaos, it's like fear, 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 fear. But during this time, silver over the last 2.5 weeks is up over 20%. Silver over the last 6 months is up 42%. Silver over since March of 2020 is up 110%. That'll put a smile on people's face. And this is where we start focusing on the solution.
A lot of people probably say,
narrative.
well, I should have done it. I should have done it. I should have done it. Why did I do it? Doesn't that mean maybe you should take a look at doing it now? Right.
Well, you should. I mean, the buyer's remorse and the fear of missing out are big motivators, right? But don't let that ever be a motivator. Let logic dictate where you go moving forward. And if interest rates are rising, wages are coming down, we've got banks that are failing, countries that are leaving the petrodollar system, we've got an extreme lack of leadership in the White House, which is allowing the BRICS nations to just wreak havoc on our petrodollar status, and they know they're not going to get any opposition. So therefore, when you see those fundamental forces driving the economy, all that we have to do is make a decision to change. Move your IRAs into physical assets like gold or silver, tangible assets. I'm not talking about paper, sir. I'm talking about physical 1,000-ounce.
So how do you recommend for people to do that in stages? To get their feet wet, or to do it all at once? And how difficult is it to do?
Well, it depends on the mentality of the person.
I
right?
bet.
Some people just,
right.
by their nature, they just want to tip their toe in it and go. But general rule of thumb, when something's going up, get in as soon as you can. When something's going down, get out as soon as you can. So I would encourage people to not just get their toes wet, but to actually just change. If you know that the Titanic is sinking, well, don't just get off slowly. It's like, okay, jump in the first lifeboat that you can, right?
Right.
So
right,
this is what I would encourage people to do. Now, the ease is simple. Call my office. It's 720-605-3900. Or you could even go to the website that we put up for all of your listeners, kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy, and say, hey, Mayor Giuliani sent me. And you know what? We'll set you up with a free consultation. Hear your concerns, your fears, your dreams, and set up a strategy to move forward. So how easy is it? Simple as a 15-minute IRA application, and we roll your current toxic paper assets into physical assets. Or if it's just a cash account or brokerage account, you wire the funds over, send a personal check. We call you and the funds show up, and we ship them to you. It's a physical thing. Our team wants to make the transition easy, the burden light, and put a smile on your face in a world where there's not much to smile around right now.
For people who have never done this, do you send them silver or gold?
Yes, sir.
or do you send them certificates?
No, not certificates. It's physical silver, or physical gold. Somebody's got to take delivery of it. Now, if you live in a neighborhood where you say, I don't want this,
right,
or maybe your back is out, you had shoulder surgery, you don't want to lift it because it is a thing, right? Well, we can set up a storage account for you,
right,
at a depository in Texas, but it's still not a certificate. It's actually physical metals that are.
So you have the certificate, or the piece of paper represents actual gold you can go get.
Yes, because it's singular ownership. See, many depositories act like a fractional reserve bank, joint ownership, meaning you own it and they could oversell it. That's not safe. The one that we use is singular ownership. So it's in your name and your name only. You're the only one that has a right to a claim to it. That's one of the keys to safety, is having that plus a segregated account, your own box in the depository, right? So that's why we vetted all of these different depositories, and that's why we choose to use the one in Texas.
And so it's like a safety deposit box. People would think of it who don't know this. Like just like and if you want to go to Texas and get it, you can go to Texas and get it.
Correct, or they can just
they can send it to you.
Yep.
Well, I think that I mean I think people are just afraid to take this. I think most people realize, and because a lot of education has been done on this in the last year by you and others, a lot of people realize that this is something they should do. It's just a matter of taking the step. And I really recommend that they make that call like Rob did, and was very, very pleased with your people, by the way. We're going to have you on again next week. And I'd like you also to give us just a little thought, and then we can go into more detail next week as to where are we going? What does the next year to 2 years look like for you? Let's say until we get to the election of 2024.
Well, we can dive into the deep end on that one next week, but generally speaking, it's going to be a very dark time economically, because they've created so much inflation, sir, by printing money like there's no tomorrow. Now they've got to raise the debt ceiling again.
Right.
And the more they do that, the more they need to raise rates to slow down that inflation. And until you get a change in policy in the White House or in Congress that says, hey, we're going to start creating jobs, we're going to lower taxes and lower interest rates, we will keep getting what we've been getting, except it's going to get worse with each rate increase. It's going to get worse with each $1 trillion that they continue to print. So we need some structural changes, some legislative action in our country to actually turn this ship around. And I don't see that happening anytime real soon.
Yeah. And then when it does happen, it takes some time to have an effect. I remember, when Reagan did it, when Trump did it, it took months before, even maybe a little longer before you really felt it. So people. The point is, people are going to be suffering through this for quite some time.
Correct.
Well,
there's a solution. Remember, focus on the solution.
Absolutely.
Don't focus on the storm. But if you don't act, you're going to be stuck in the storm.
And no point in not
faith that you were talking about.
And no point in not making the call and seeing, what it does. Seeing if Kirk is right and it puts a smile on your face. I think it will.
Correct.
Okay, Kirk.
Well,
thank you
for that.
As usual, that was a
welcome.
Superb explanation. I think people really, really got it. He's really the best at this. I mean, and it's true. I listened to a lot of these, and I'm sure a lot of them are good. I'm not, knocking them or anything, but Kirk really gives a very, very good explanation. And you think about what we're going to go through now, this stupid thing that Biden is doing. He wants to raise he has to raise the debt ceiling. Is it June 1st? I thought Yellen said June 1st. And then if he doesn't, the government goes into that partial shutdown, which we've had a couple of times. But then there's a point at which if you don't do it, you start defaulting on your debt, which we'll have Kirk explain what that is. We're not there yet, so no reason to frighten everybody about it. But that would be catastrophic for the world economy, not just the U.S. economy. And right now, Numbnuts says he's not going to negotiate. Well, what is this, a dictatorship? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? I mean, he's got people in Congress who don't agree with him. He's got at least half enough to pass a bill in the House of Representatives, and I suspect more than that because there's partisan pressure for Democrats to vote with him. And I'm not sure he certainly doesn't have the 60 votes in the House in the Senate to pass this. he might not have 50 votes in the House, in the Senate to pass it. And if he does, it's really by twisting their arms. So what are you doing that for? Just to act like you're a tough guy? I mean, this is the kind of thing that you should negotiate. There's no right answer on something like this. The right answer is usually somewhere in the middle and with compromise. And given the amount of money that he's added to spending, it's even more than compromise here. I mean, the ideal solution would be to cut out all that extra spending and go back to where we were before the pandemic. Now, you can't, I recognize you can't do that all at once, but you at least make one good step toward that. And then the other things in the McCarthy, let's call it bill right now, the hidden things that are very exciting is the return of workfare. Now, for me, exciting because I started workfare, or I was one of the first to start workfare, and I started it and used it and made it successful in the place that they thought it couldn't work. When I came into office, there were 1.2 million people on welfare, and I left it with about more than half taken off and almost all of them with jobs. And workfare was probably one of the smartest things I ever did in my whole life. And it's probably the thing, believe it or not, except maybe for reduction of crime, that I get the most feedback on when I walk the streets of New York about people that I've gotten jobs for. And that's in the bill. And I really think that is a hidden gem in the bill. Well, you know, last night we got the news pretty much right before we went on that this letter was sent by Coomer and Grassley to the Justice Department and the FBI for the FBI report or reports, and they go into great detail about what that a whistleblower has told them contains detailed information and evidence that a foreign source paid money to Joe Biden in exchange for policy changes. I don't know exactly what that means. I could speculate. I'm not. I could speculate what it means by telling you what's in the hard drive that might fit that. But I don't think that's fair or right. And I don't like being wrong. It could be that I'm wrong about it. Some of the things that have come out have fit the things that were in the hard drive. And some of the things that have come out we didn't know about from the hard drive, because the hard drive is just a slice, and a big slice of his life. But it's not his whole life. It wasn't the only computer that he was using. It wasn't the only cell phone that he was using. It wasn't the only way in which he was transacting business. There appears, and I can only tell you what other people have said, not try to be careful. What do I know? What do I know from other people? Where have I seen the evidence? Where have I been told? I have not seen evidence of foreign bank accounts. I have been told by more than one source that the Bidens have foreign bank accounts. And not only that, there was an offer turned down or not followed up by the FBI and by Bill Barr, by the chief accountant of Burisma, to give them Biden's foreign bank account, which they did not, that I know they didn't follow up on. And the woman was willing to do it in exchange for being in the witness protection program. There was nothing lost in talking to her. In fact, there'd be a lot to be gained. Even if you trust Biden, it would be disproven. I mean, it's pretty simple. She's either going to have the right numbers or the wrong numbers, right? And like many other witnesses, like the whistleblower the stenographer who took the trip to Ukraine with them and says he has evidence of crimes committed by the big guy, and the FBI has never talked to him, or the IRS supervisor. Similarly, what the FBI has done for 3 years in the face of crimes that are jumping out of the hard drive, asking to be prosecuted. They're just stuffing them back in and ignoring them. It's a very, very corrupt and very disheartening situation to see that. Very disheartening. But now there's been a subpoena to the Justice Department and to the FBI to produce that report described by the whistleblower. And this is, I think, honestly, I said this before as a bit of a joke, but I think it would be, we should give these whistleblowers numbers or names, because it might sound like it's the same whistleblower. It is not. There's the, in just recent weeks, there's the whistleblower who was the stenographer on the critical trip to Ukraine, which looks like it was part of the bribery scheme between Mykola Zlochevsky, the owner of Burisma, and then Vice President Biden, with Hunter and Devin Archer being the go-betweens for the money. That's what it looks like. That one's easy to pin to the hard drive, because there's a great deal in the hard drive about that, including Anthony Blinken's involvement in it, which is manifest in the hard drive. There are texts back and forth. There's a secret meeting. Blinken brings them in a secret way so nobody knows they met. It's that whole thing with Blinken coming out. I mean, I've known that. I've known that he was involved with, well, actually, even before the hard drive. So there's another guy that's going to be, there can be questions about whether he should be prosecuted.
Mayor, the phone lines are lighting up. Are you ready for a call?
Well, good. Yeah. Let's who do we have, and where are they from?
We have Carolyn in Michigan. Are you there, Carolyn?
Yes.
Hello, Carolyn.
Oh, hi. How are you? It's so good to hear your voice and talk to you.
Well, tell me what.
Your show.
Thank you. Well, tell me what you would like to talk about.
Okay. We're all hearing about the digital system that I think our government's trying to deliberately bring in. And I just wanted, excuse my ignorance, but I wanted to know, can they legally do that?
Can they
bring in the digital system, currency system, the U.S.?
Oh, I see what you're saying. What? Of course, there's a great. Well, they have to pass laws to do it. The digital system would mean that. I mean, ideally, it would mean you wouldn't have any cash money, and you wouldn't have any gold for money, or silver, or minerals, or precious metals, or all you'd have is some kind of a notation in the internet, or it could simply mean that you do have the present form of money, but the government has access to all of it through the digital system, so it can see what's happening with money. Now, the danger with that is they can go then direct your money without your knowing about it. So if they say you owe something, some taxes, let's say, and let's say you don't owe it, you don't get any chance to dispute it until after the fact. They just take the money out. And then it turns out they had the wrong person. That's happened, right? Well, they took the money from you. Or if they don't think you should be investing in coal properties because coal is bad, they could just seize the money that you put into the coal company. Or if they don't think that you should give a contribution to the Catholic Church, that many of them think is a terrorist organization or something, particularly the ones who go to the Latin Mass, they could just cut off your contributions to the Catholic Church and think they were doing the right thing because they're maniacs. Yeah, the digital system is one of the most dangerous things right now in this country, because this country has a government that can't be trusted. Now, I don't think government could ever be trusted to have that. If we had the best government America has ever had, first of all, the best government America ever had wouldn't want it. They wouldn't want it. I mean, the founding fathers wanted less power, not more. People who want more power generally are and become, if not restrained, dictators.
Let's Let's keep it in Michigan.
And that was a very, very important concern, Ted. Dr. Maria and I talk a lot about this, and we have to spend more time on this, because this is where they're going. This is where all the one worlders, Klaus Schwab and Gates, and this is where they're taking us. And so they can get right into your bank account. And essentially, you'd have no property. You really would become a communist country. They'd have control over every penny you had.
Wow. That's what's coming? Is it? Can we stop it?
We can stop it, but that's what they're. If you read what Klaus Schwab has said, and I mean this is why Soros is investing all this money in destroying our system of government, destroying our city. People wonder, well, why does he invest all this money in creating so much crime in American cities? Well, it's a Marxist theory. You create chaos. Chaos leads to desperation, and then everybody follows the leader, and the leader eventually leads them to the slaughterhouse.
Well, let's keep it in Michigan, Mayor. Let's go to Roseanne. Roseanne's coming to us from just outside Detroit. Hello, Roseanne.
Oh, you're back home. You're back home, huh, Ted?
That's right, Roseanne. We're outside Detroit. I also have a small place in Metro Detroit.
Oh, you do? Where at?
Birmingham.
Oh, I know exactly where that's at. I am probably 20 miles south of Detroit in Wyandotte.
Wyandotte. Great part of the state. I would liken it to Staten Island.
Wyandotte.
Yes.
Oh, good.
When it comes to the Detroit area, Staten Island, heavy Giuliani country.
Then I would like it. I would like it.
Yeah, I have the water right across the street, so it's really nice.
Oh, wow. So tell us.
Yeah.
Tell us which I'm talking about.
I have a question, actually a two-part question. One, why is it taking so long to impeach Biden all the way from the very beginning? And two, my second question is, what can we do as citizens? I feel like we're watching everything unfold. Obviously, we're getting frustrated. We're getting angry, watching everything that's happening. And I think many of us feel helpless in what we can do as citizens. And, obviously we're going to get involved with the campaigning for Trump and so forth. But I don't know. I'm just feeling helpless, and I'm feeling angry because they move so fast on Trump. And here Biden is just crime after crime after crime in the family. And you know what I mean? So it's kind of frustrating.
Well, it's frustrating to all of us, particularly since some of this crime I've been sitting with documented, provable evidence of it for 2018, 19, 20, 21, 22, 4 years. Presented it to them 3 years ago. And it's not just like you have to investigate it. It's witnesses who can testify to the crimes, documents that corroborate it, and in some cases, tape recordings and texts. So there are complete cases of federal crimes committed by the President of the United States. And they were available in some cases a year and a half before the election, and within a year of the election, known to the FBI. And they let him get elected President of the United States, knowing that. So that it's not just Biden being a 30-year criminal. His son describes it best in the text that I, beginning finally after all these years to get some momentum. It's probably the most important text in the hard drive. And it's in 2018, in December 2018. And it's from Hunter Biden to his daughter. And he says, for 30 years, I've paid all the expenses of this family. And I've also had to give Pop half my income. Now you understand the whole picture, right? All the questions of, well, why would they be hiring Hunter Biden? He knows nothing about whatever it is they're giving him millions for. Well, because they're buying Joe Biden's influence, and Hunter Biden is a pass-through. He's a bag man, which traditionally crooked politicians have used. And they are using the Chinese system of bribery, which is to use the relatives to get the money, who then pass it to the principal. This happens all over China. In the U.S., we would usually have done it directly in the past or through a stranger bagman. But by doing it through the family, you can hide a lot of it easier, the Chinese have found. And so really these people are, and you can see that in other situations, that if this blows open, the Bidens will not be the only family in politics that are doing this. They may be making the most money, and they may be the one doing it in a way that gets closest to treason because it's with China and Russia. But they're not the only ones who are selling their office. It's unfortunate, but we have a pretty darn corrupt government. And we have a totally corrupt justice system, which is why nothing is done about it.
So, Mayor, how big will this play on the campaign trail, do you think, ahead of 24?
Well, I mean, they succeeded in reducing it tremendously in 2020. They didn't reduce it completely. 50% of the American people knew about it. And I do think that Trump, who was supposed to lose by 12 or 15%. Now, you can look at that election in one of two ways. He came very close because it took weeks to, make all those states catch up where he was ahead. Or you might believe that he really won, but he was much closer than people realized, right? The reason for that, I think, was the hard drive. I mean, people did find out about it, but not everybody. Now, they take polls now, and if everybody found out about it, he would have won. And there's no reason why he wouldn't have won, because the president of the United States, the guy running for president of the United States, would have been revealed as the biggest crook ever to run for that office that we know of. Someone here says that Trump lost.
I was going to point that
Well,
out.
I mean, that's debatable. That's debatable. And to try to make that into, if you say there's a stolen election, you're some kind of traitor or instigator of violence, or that's a way to stop free speech. That's a way to cover up the crime. And the Democrats do that all the time. They try to create language control so they can get away with their crimes. That's what they did with Russian collusion. I mean, I don't know how many times people can lie to you and you figure out they're liars and crooks. I mean, the Democrats have played this game now since Hillary Clinton and Bill. Russian collusion, complete lie. The media bought it. The New York Times and the Washington Post got Pulitzer Prizes for it. And it's a total phony. It's a paid-for frame-up to stop someone from being president. And then it's a paid frame-up to take out a lawfully elected president. The entire situation with the conversation with the president of Ukraine was completely made up. They lied about it. And then when the letter came out, when the text came out, they still pretended it said that. And had you had the hard drive, it would have been a complete defense that would have contradicted what they were saying. But Barr and Gray, for reasons only they understand, covered it up, as well as the Democrats covered up the hard drive. And then we know they went through that absolutely disgusting, corrupt scheme to put out that phony letter in which 51 high intelligence officials proved to be pimps, prostitutes, sell whatever soul they had, which was probably none. For power. And remember, it's not accidental that our intelligence is as screwed up as it is. These are the people who are running it. I mean, obviously, these are not good people. If they're going to just sign a letter without any proof saying this is Russian earmarks of blah, 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 what kind of intelligence people are they? How disciplined are they about giving intelligence to the president? Maybe this is the reason we went to war on the wrong reason and killed lots of people. Maybe this is the reason why we got people slaughtered in Benghazi.
Thanks for joining us. The fastest hour on the internet. And of course, you can go to rudygiulianics.com. That's RudyGiulianiCS.com. And what does the CS stand for, Mayor?
Common sense.
And well, the hour's already up, Mayor. This really flies by. So in closing on what has been a very busy Thursday evening, what message do you have for our audience going into Friday and ahead of what could be a very busy news weekend with some of these ongoing scandals?
I don't think it's right, the right way to treat the American people by the Republicans or the Democrats, and in this case, the Republicans, to withhold this letter or this document this long. Now, I should amend that because they don't have the document. The document's in the hands of the Justice Department and or the FBI, but there'll be nothing classified in this. A bribe is not classified, believe me. And this should be put out all at once. I think it's almost unfortunate that there was this bifurcated release of it, in that this was released, this information was released, which is general in nature and not the specifics, so that we can evaluate the seriousness of it and the truthfulness of it. And it's strange to hear me say this, but I mean, if we want to straighten out how we do things, that's the way it has to be done in the future, because it is true that Biden is a major crook. And you're going to find it very strange hearing me say this, but he still has the right to be treated fairly. And the fair thing to do would have been to put it out all at once. Now, I would say that so far is not the Republican issue, because they don't have it. You could say maybe they should have withheld this part of it until they got it. Here's the reality. If they did, they may never have gotten it. So there are practical realities to be discussed here. But the ideal is something like this should come out with all the facts, because this is what they did to Trump, partial little descriptions, and then it turned out not to be true. So there's a lot riding on whether this is true or not in terms of credibility. So I would like to see this as soon as possible. And unlike the other ones that have come out, I don't know this one, so I can't evaluate it for you. I think I might, but I could be wrong. The others, the minute they came out, I knew exactly where the document was. I knew it was true. I know exactly what the IRS agent is talking about. I know exactly what the guy who was on the airplane is talking about. I'm not worried about the accuracy of that. But this one is confusing based on what's in the hard drive. May turn out with one little fact or one little detail, it'll be like, wow, there it is. Or it might turn out that this was not in this hard drive, but in the other, of which there are several Chinese transactions that are in the other hard drive and not in this one. But despite the rumors from the corrupt communist press and the Democratic Party, I do things very, very carefully. And I only tell you what I have proof of. And then if things change and people supply additional proof or dispute it, I'll tell you that. So I guess that's the end of our hour for tonight. And we'll be back with you tomorrow night. We may have more information about this and some of the other things. I would like to say a few words before we close and take advantage of a teeny bit of soccer time about Tucker Carlson, because I think this is one of the major outrages of anything that's happened, and an example of the almost complete dictatorship in which we live, which is not just government, it's private sector. Just think of this. I mean, this is a big company firing its employee. Big companies fire or part with employees, including their most important employees, often. But what's this character assassination thing all about? I mean, what's that all about? Where's that coming from the heart of Fox? I thought I knew Fox. I had something to do with the fact that it exists. I don't get where this vicious, except for the fact that it's so damn damaging, you'd almost call it sophomoric nonsense is coming from. I mean, today they put out a thing that he said to some woman, do they have pillow fights in bathrooms? That's it. But so what? It isn't so much what they're putting out, it's the motivation for putting it out. And I think they're reading it wrong too, because they're such zealots. They think people are going to, I mean, people are looking at this and saying, is that all you got on him? It's kind of like Trump and the brag thing. You go through 20 years of his life, and the best thing you got is he may have paid money to a prostitute 7 years ago beyond the statute of limitations with a non-disclosure agreement, which there are about 100,000 of those in New York every year or so. Nothing criminal about it. Nothing, wasn't a campaign contribution. The Justice Department determined that. I mean, it's crazy. The stuff they've brought out about him, and then the thing even that had theoretically racial overtones. You go back. I mean, you go back to Obama saying things worse than that, Sharpton saying things much worse than that, and then Biden sort of lets him off the hook completely when just the other day he does that boy thing. He calls somebody boy, and then it brings out that he previously, just a few months ago, but they covered that up, called the new black mayor of governor of Maryland, hey boy. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. It's Joe Biden. You're allowed to say whatever you want when you're demented and a Democrat. And so I think it's very, very dangerous what we're seeing with the Post. I mean, with Fox. I was thinking of the New York Post, but it really, they haven't, their newspapers haven't played it up, and Fox News hasn't played it up. They're really counting on their enemies to play it up, like the New York Times, and what's that site, Media Matters, which is a constant critic of theirs. They leak it to their enemy.
That's the funny part. This is the outlet that's constantly railing against Fox for years.
Media Matters is in some kind of
arm of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, and if you listen to the left wing, CNN, MSNBC, wackos, they got themselves like whirling dervishes. Biden is now the worst criminal. I mean, Hunter Biden is nothing compared to Tucker. Tucker's the really bad guy. He's a really bad guy. Wow, what a bad guy he is. I mean, we gotta, let's see if we have this. Here it is.
Put the mic up to it.
Listen to this.
Put it up to the mic.
This is a sick person speaking joyfully and enthusiastically about a desire for people to beat up another person.
He is voicing homicidal rage. Let's not.
An enthusiasm.
An enthusiasm.
Where's the red line? It is this depraved indifference to violence.
This is an explicit acknowledgement of racial superiority.
In the sense that this is worse than other things he said, the text, because it is an expression of homicidal rage.
This is not the last that we're going to hear about text messages that are promoting violence and promoting racism coming from Tucker Carlson.
It's like they're in some kind of a trance, and they get themselves, it's like what they used to do with Trump. They pass it around from one to the other. Quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid. He's finished. He's done. This is a blockbuster. This is going to be the end of his presidency. Wow, isn't that great? And then it turns out that Papadopoulos is innocent. Or it turns out that they did it, right? That Hillary did it. And, whoa! It's not wrong to bribe someone to do a phony report trying to frame someone. I mean, after all, it's not the worst thing the Clintons have done. Well, we're going to say goodnight. And we're going to ask you to tomorrow, if you've got the time, tune in to WABCradio.com, 77 WABC if you're in New York. But if you want to get us online, you just go get the WABC app, and you can get us all the time between 3 and 4. And then on Sundays with Dr. Maria on Uncovering the Truth. And then here, 8 o'clock every night, we get a chance to have a nice conversation, right? And cover the things that either are not being covered or are not being covered sufficiently so that the American people can absorb them and protect themselves and either protect their way of life or reestablish it, which is really what we have to do. Well, thank you very, very much, and God bless America.